it ahead of the World Cup. They plan even stronger enforcement at the airports in that June and July months when both states host the World Cup games. That includes like outreach to let people know to avoid this. But it's important that the Port Authority gets ahead of this. I've interviewed several hustlers and taxi scammers, and they intentionally target tourists who've never been to New York. The World Cup, like we said, is the biggest sporting event in the world, and it brings in millions of people. Another warning they made, the executive director at the Port Authority, Catherine Garcia, she said at a board meeting earlier today that New Yorkers should stay home during these games.
If you are not attending one of the events, to please, if possible, work from home because the city will be incredibly congested, and so will New Jersey, so the back and forth is just going to be tough.
I think it's fair to say we're going to expect some pandemonium when the games begin.
Yeah.
And this is really the exact same message NJ Transit has for riders, too. There'll be no access 4 hours before each match at Penn Station. And if people are trying to get to the city from New Jersey who aren't at the World Cup after one of these matches, they'll actually be funneled to the PATH train run by the Port Authority.
The MTA is pretty happy that Long Island Railroad will continue to run, but that's going in the other direction from the stadium.
I got to say, I'm not looking forward to that, but, the World Cup is what it is. All right, every week in our On the Way newsletter, we answer a question from a curious commuter. This one is from Jerry in Manhattan who says, if there is one type of door that requires 100% functionality, it's the subway door. What are the sensors that ensure the doors are fully closed? Is there a tolerance that allows a door to be frantically open, yet the train moves on?
So subway trains cannot move unless all the doors are fully shut and securely locked. So I asked an MTA spokesperson who said that there is no tolerance for doors to be fractionally open like that was mentioned. Subway car doors are lined with sensors that detect obstructions, and they'll remain open until that path is cleared. The train won't move, and it'll stay completely closed. They really want to hammer that point. But the MTA has had some issues with doors in their newer subway cars. Back in 2020, the agency actually pulled some of the modern trains out of service due to malfunctioning doors of some cars, so they won't run them if they don't work.
Okay. Well, thanks to Jerry for that question. That's WNYC, Steve Nesson, Ramsey Khalifa, and Clayton Guzza. You can stay in the know on all things transit or ask a question of your own by signing up for our weekly newsletter at gothamist.com/ontheway. My friends, thanks so much. See you next week.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
It's WNYC. Marketplace is next. And then at 7 o'clock tonight, when Mayor Mamdani was elected, he said his administration would deliver the most ambitious agenda since the days of Fiorulla LaGuardia. Well, WNYC senior politics reporter Bridget Bergen interviewed the mayor this past Monday to find out how true that is 100 days in. Hear that conversation along with audience questions and the voice of LaGuardia himself. That's at 7 o'clock tonight, right here on WNYC. 71 degrees right now. We'll see lows in the low 50s overnight. It's just about 6:30.
WNYC receives support from RSM, an assurance tax and consulting firm working to empower middle market leaders worldwide to take charge of change. RSM. Experience the power of being understood.
WNYC. Independent journalism in the public interest. 93.9 FM and AM 820. NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Marketplace is supported by JLL, a global commercial real estate firm that helps clients find, manage, and invest in properties across all sectors. JLL, see a brighter way.
Coming up on the program today, a short Wall Street tutorial. We'll talk factories, and we'll talk price caps, and we will pour one out for Florida oranges. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by The Economist, providing reporting and analysis on global politics, economics, science, and culture, covering international trends and emerging issues shaping the world today. More information at economist.com. And by BMC. BMC helps customers worldwide run and modernize their businesses by automating, managing, and optimizing complex IT environments. Learn more at bmc.com. And by Drexel University, where the academic model integrates classroom study with professional experience. More at drexel.edu.
In Los Angeles, I'm Colin Risnall. It is Thursday today. This one is the 23rd of April. Good as it always is to have you along, everybody. Wall Street was in a yeah, maybe war is not so great mood today. Equities fell. The price action, as traders like to say, mostly to the downside. The bigger picture we will do at that spot in the program where we always do the bigger picture. But we begin today with a single company and its roller coaster of a month. Avis shares were up sevenfold the past 30 days, and they had kept on going up until yesterday. On this Thursday, ticker symbol CAR, get it, Avis, CAR, C-A-R, shares down 48%, the worst day Avis has had in the markets in 28 years. The phrase short squeeze is what you're looking for. Marketplace's Kaylee Wells has today's explainer.
Short squeezes start because investors bet on a stock doing poorly, also known as taking a short position. Here's an example.
For whatever reason, I decide that I think Avis is overpriced, and I'm looking for a way to make money off of this.
In this example, Paul Shea of Bates College will borrow a bunch of shares of Avis stock, sell them while they're overpriced, and then when the price falls, he'll buy them back up and return them to his lender.
So I've profited because the price of the stock has gone down. And this is a really popular way that you can bet against a firm, a sector, anything you think is overpriced in a financial market.
Now, Avis was ripe for the picking because rental car companies have had a rough go recently, says Tyler Shipper with the University of St. Thomas.
It's still a relatively competitive industry with lots of other potential modes of transportation where people can now get Uber or Lyft pretty easily and get around lots of places.
But when too many investors take that short position, it drives up the demand for the stock. So the stock price climbs and climbs and climbs, making these investors' bets fail spectacularly. Because the people who lent their stock to the investors say, hey, that stock's worth a lot now, so I want you to give it back. But oh no, the investor sold it, remember?
They have to actually go into the market and buy that stock in order to return it to whomever they borrowed it from.
Brett House at Columbia Business School says the short squeeze is when a whole bunch of the loaners force that to happen at the same time. Now, all those people who wanted to buy the stock back when it was cheap have no choice but to buy it when it's rising.
And that pushes the price up further, and that creates a spiral that is the squeeze.
Once the investors pay back all their borrowed shares, the price falls and the squeeze ends. Angel Tengulov at University of Kansas says this happened recently with AMC and GameStop.
Their stock prices remained at elevated levels for an extended period of time after the squeeze events.
So even though it's been a tumultuous month for Avis, it could mean more money for the company in the long run. I'm Kaylee Wells for Marketplace.
Live by the meme stock, die by the meme stock, right? A little bit of labor market news before we go on. First-time claims for unemployment benefits last week, basically flat. Low hire, low fire continues to be the byword in the American labor market, except for this. The Wall Street Journal reports that Meta told its staff today it's going to lay off about 10% of the total workforce, comes to almost 8,000 people. It's also not going to hire for about 6,000 other positions. Why, I hear you ask? Efficiency, the company says. Oh, and also because it's going to spend more on artificial intelligence. Stocks down, oil up, bonds just marking time. We will have the details when we do the numbers. The hard economic data today came from S&P Global, its first estimate of U.S. manufacturing for this current month. And what do you know? Factory output rose this month at the fastest rate in 4 years, fueled in part by the biggest jump in new orders to factories since May of 2022. Good, but not, as Daniel Ackerman explains.
When you drill down into the survey data, says Chris Williamson of S&P Global Market Intelligence,
you start to see that the picture's not quite so rosy.
For instance, all those new orders aren't because manufacturers are seeing skyrocketing demand for their products.
this is due to people building safety stocks because they're fearing supply shortages or price hikes in the coming months.
Manufacturers, meanwhile, don't know what's coming through the Strait of Hormuz or when, so they're trying to get everything they need to fill those orders on hand now. In other words,
we're moving into sort of a bunker mentality in manufacturing.
Zach Rogers researches operations and logistics at Colorado State University. He says it's not unlike last year when U.S. firms stocked up on imports ahead of tariffs.
The difference now is instead of, let's build up the finished goods, we're in addition to that seeing, let's also build up the components that we need for manufacturing that we might not have access to if this war continues on through the summer.
Rogers says buying in bulk can also reduce how much manufacturers spend on fuel, the price of which is way up. But it tends to be the larger manufacturers that have enough cash to do this.
The really smaller firms may not be able to afford to do those really big forward buys. And so if this ends up being really expensive, this is going to disproportionately hurt the smaller businesses in the economy.
There is, of course, risk in hoarding months' worth of materials, says Jason Miller, a professor of supply chain management at Michigan State University.
If you do a lot of forward buying, your ability to match supply with demand is now reduced.
Like if rising inflation or a sinking job market causes consumers to buy less of the stuff you make?
Lord forbid, but let's say that worst case scenario comes to pass. You're now sitting on a lot of excess input inventory and your demand is falling.
Meaning those manufacturers could end up with a bunch of unsold goods later this year. I'm Daniel Ackerman for Marketplace.
If you've heard me say it once on this program, you have heard me say it